A gentle ray of sunshine crept through the blinds and landed on my face. I sat there for a moment, caught between my dreams, and savored the peace I felt within my body. The pain in my legs and chest started to slither from the space between my joints, and I rolled onto my back. I kicked with my leg 3 or 4 times to get enough momentum to carry my body forward so that I could sit myself up. I felt the fluid in my lungs rattle around, sending me into a coughing fit. I pulled the CPAP mask from my face as soon as the bile began to travel up my throat. "What kind of life is this?" I asked myself out loud, in between attempts to expel the vomit and phlegm from my body. The trash can at my side was a constant companion. I would need to clean it out today if I could muster up the energy. My oxygen machine gave a loud beep as I turned it on and placed the cannula inside my nostrils. The birds outside my window sang with the rising sun, and I watched them for some time trying to catch my breath. I inhaled the manufactured air deeply and wished that I could be on a lake or mountain somewhere instead of this sorry excuse for a home. I felt the familiar pain of hunger as my belly let out a vigorous growl. The path to the kitchen could be treacherous, but I had to eat. I took the cane that leaned in the corner of my bedroom and was off. I did my best to keep the tail that was my oxygen hose from catching on anything. My house was small and cluttered. The home health nurses that came to visit tried to help me organize it all, but I refused to let them. I didn't want anyone to touch Carol's things. I tripped and stumbled over boxes until I found myself staring into my refrigerator. "Might just have to have more sleep for breakfast," I said, as I moved around the condiment jars as if doing so would magically make groceries appear. My efforts in the fridge proved fruitless, so I moved on to the cabinets where I found a can of chili hiding in the corner. "I guess I had 1 can left," I said, pleased with my discovery. I searched for the can opener in a sea of letters from my doctor that littered the countertop. The one from my latest appointment caught my eye and my stomach dropped. My own mortality slapped me in the face. The results of the scans were less than hopeful. I brushed off thoughts of my next appointment and found the can opener. The device felt heavy in my hand as I struggled to use it. I fought against the neuropathy in my fingers, begging for them to work. Each attempt was met with searing pain, as if the handle of the can opener was made of thorns. "Come on, damn it," I said, trying to push through the pain. I felt a satisfying click as the pointed end of the can opener pierced the top of the can. "Almost there now." I furrowed my brow in concentration as I shifted my hands and began to turn the handle. Each rotation caused me to wince in pain, but I persevered, knowing that my meal awaited me on the other side. I finished opening the can and couldn't help but let a triumphant smile crawl across my face. I plopped the chili into a bowl and stuffed it into the microwave. My stomach growled again as I waited for the digital timer to count down. When the loud beep rang out, I didn't waste any time pulling my quarry from the machine. I turned to leave the kitchen with my chili in hand, but felt my foot catch. The oxygen hose that followed me everywhere had gotten tangled around my feet. I fell forward, trying desperately to hold onto the bowl, but it was no use. The chili splattered all over the floor. The breath left my body as my large frame hit the ground. I felt pain shoot through the side of my body, and the crack that echoed out made me wonder if I broke a rib. The hose slowly delivered air back to my lungs. Once I was able to, I cried out in pain and frustration. I threw the spoon I still held in my hand hard at the wall. I no longer had any use for it. I wallowed in chili and my own tears for 20 minutes before I was able to stand. I felt shame cover me. The wretched words uttered by so many at Carol's funeral rang out in my ears. "Don't worry, she'll always be watching over you." I couldn't think of anything I wanted less in the world than for Carol to see me like this. A pitiful shell of the man she had once called her husband. I searched for the calendar that hung on the wall. It was Thursday today. I was thankful. My nurse wasn't coming by today, so I was in the clear. The mess was my own making and my own problem. I held my side as I limped to another room to try and find a rag. Hunger was heavy within me when I stepped out of the shower. I was never supposed to bathe without assistance. My nurse had explained to me time and again that falls were the leading cause of fatality for people in my health. I was already one tumble in today, though. What more could another hurt? I sat on the edge of my bed, daydreaming about a meal from Betty's Cafe, when my phone rang. I saw the name light up on the screen. It was Susie. I raced to the phone with an urgency and speed I hadn't seen for myself in years. My heart raced while my fingers struggled to slide the little green icon over. Come on, I said aloud between attempts. I felt like I was nanoseconds away from missing the call. How long had it been ringing? I was finally successful, and I heard Susie's voice on the other end.
Dad?
She asked. Hey there, Susie Q, I said, beaming. It's been a while.
Please don't call me that,
she said.
Look, I need a favor.
Anything for you. What is it?
I need to get a hotel or something for a couple of days. Jerry's been drinking again.
Jerry? I said. I thought the two of you split up. I told you he's no good for you.
I don't need a lecture, okay?
Susie's voice was that of a teenager telling off a parent.
It's complicated. Can you help me or not?
I knew Susie wouldn't stay with me. I had offered many times before, but she always refused. The math had already started in my head. The electric bill was due tomorrow, but they had a 5-day grace period. Worst case scenario, I had enough oxygen bottles to cover a day or two without power. I would just need to be careful sleeping without my CPAP machine. You know that I will, sweetie. Just come by and get the money, I said.
I don't want to see you. Can't you just Venmo me or something?
Susie, I don't even know what that means. She let out an exaggerated sigh.
Fine, I'll be there soon.
Okay, baby, I love you. She hung up before I could finish. I navigated back to my recliner, being mindful of the hose that followed. The small TV I owned did little to hold my interest as I waited for my daughter to arrive. The knock on the door came sooner than I expected. Door's open, honey. Susie stepped into my living room, but came no further than just past the threshold. I'm in a hurry, she said, looking away from me. That's fine, sweetie. The money is there. I pointed to an envelope I had prepared. Can I get a hug? I've missed you. It smells in here, Susie said as she approached me. Don't you ever clean up? I do what I can, I said shamefully. Just can't get around like I used to. Susie reached out and gave me a half-hearted hug with one arm. She continued to look away from me, refusing to meet my eyes. Thanks, she said as she pulled away and headed straight for the door. Look, Susie, I know I haven't been the best dad, especially after what happened with your mom. I wasn't there for you like I should have been. Don't you dare try to apologize now. Her anger got the best of her as she turned to face me. You put me through hell. I would have been better off letting Mom's ghost raise me. Maybe if I got a Ouija board, she would have actually talked to me once in a while. My daughter's words cut me deep, but I was caught off guard by the bruise she carried on her cheek. Susie, your face! What happened? I asked. She turned away, her anger replaced by embarrassment. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. Did Jerry do that? The tone in my voice was rising. I began to shake and grip the armrests of my chair until my knuckles turned white. You tell me right now, did that punk do this? Dad, it doesn't matter. I'm leaving him. And how many times have you left him, Susie? I asked while standing up. You can't keep doing this to yourself. Susie looked at me with a stern face. She was hiding something. I could see the lines in her face begin to falter as she was teetering on the edge of breaking down. A single tear rolled down her face. Baby girl, what is it? I stepped towards her and pulled her into my chest. I'm here for you no matter what. You know that. He said he was going to kill me, Dad. Her charade of strength broke under the pressure of her words. He said he was going to kill me, and I believe him. I don't know what to do. Susie was no longer an adult. In a few split seconds, she had crumpled and was a scared little girl. The weariness of life had caught up to her, and though our relationship was strained, she still found safety in the arms of her father. "I won't ever let that happen," I told her as she sobbed. The words I spoke were truer than she could ever know. In those brief moments, I made a decision. The results of my last doctor's appointment were heavy on my mind, but suddenly they didn't matter. "I won't let that piece of shit ever lay a hand on you again." "You don't understand, Dad. He's crazy. I barely got away from him this time." "I understand," I told her, wishing that Carol was here. "You listen to me, okay? You're gonna take that money and go to Beaver's Bend. Do you remember the wood knot cabin?" "Yeah," she said, confused. "Why go there?" "It was your mom's favorite. I'll go talk to him while you're gone." "Dad, no," she said, wiping the tears from her eyes. "There's no point." "Susie, listen," I said, searching for the right words. "I know I've let you down in more ways than you can count. But please, trust me on this. Let me talk to him for you, man to man. I'm just going to ask him to leave you alone is all. If it doesn't work, we'll file for a protective order." I lied to my daughter. I knew that protective orders were only as strong as the paper they were written on, and did nothing to keep anyone safe. "I just don't think it's a good idea." "Well, you let your old man worry about that. Wait right here." I moved to my bedroom with a renewed sense of energy and purpose. The soft light highlighted the door of the closet as if it beckoned me in. Hidden beneath old jackets and memories was a small but sturdy safe. I picked it up, struggling under its weight, and punched in the code. A metallic clink filled the room as it opened. The safe held a secret I had kept for years. I pushed the door open, and inside was a modest stack of cash sitting next to a pistol. Each bill in the pile of money was a testament to sacrifices made and dreams deferred. I had skipped many meals over the years to add to the sum. I pulled the cash out and then looked at the gun. I picked it up and felt the familiar weight in my hand. Susie's safety was my only concern. I placed the pistol on my bed, knowing that I had business with the weapon later. When I returned, Susie stood in the living room, nervously picking at her arm. The mascara around her eyes ran down her face, and she kept wiping at it with the sleeve of her shirt. "I wanted to save this for you when I told her as I handed her the wad of money. "But I think you need it now." "Where did you get all this?" she asked with wide eyes. "Doesn't matter. It's yours," I told her. "When was the last time you got your nails done? There's a spa down there at Beaver's Bend. I want you to go down there and treat yourself. Use the rest of it to start over once you get back. Get your own place and get away from Jerry." "But Dad, look at this place," Susie whispered, her eyes sweeping over the worn-out walls and cracked floor tiles of the house. "You could use this money to fix things up." My gaze followed hers, taking in the visible wear and tear of a life lived with its fair share of struggles. "That money," I began softly, "wasn't meant for repairs or for me. From the moment I tucked it away, it was always yours. Promise me that you'll get out of here, even if just for a little while." "Thank you so much. I promise." The distance between us closed as she wrapped her arms tightly around me. Fatherhood washed over me, and I knew I was making the right decision. I'll be damned if I ever let that son of a bitch hurt my Susie ever again. "I love you, Susie." I watched as tears from both of us hit the floor. "I love you so much. Things will get better, I promise." "I love you too, Daddy," she said. Susie's car pulled away from the driveway and I waved at her. I felt a sense of pride as she drove off. I told her I would keep her safe, and I knew deep down that she believed me. All of the commotion from the day had caught up to me, and I sat in my recliner thinking about my life. A coughing fit came on, and I reached for my trash can as I did my best to expel all the mucus from my chest. I stood up and went to one of the many boxes marked Carol. I dug around until I found our old wedding album. I took it and returned to my chair. I traced the outline of my wife in every picture as I studied each page. "I let our girl down, Carol," I told the picture of her walking down the aisle. "But I'm gonna make it right. I'll make it right today. I placed the scrapbook on the coffee table and then reached for my phone. I dialed the number to the only cab company in town. Yeah, I need a driver as soon as you got one available, I told the operator. I set the phone down and then went to my bedroom to retrieve my gun. The pistol was old. My father had given it to me when I was a young man. I wasn't sure what the police did with the weapon that was used to kill someone, but I hoped that the gun would make it back to Susie. I slid the pistol into my medicine bag and went to the front porch to wait on my ride. A number of oxygen tanks stood outside my door. They were a delivery from the oxygen man just yesterday. I picked one up and sat the portable regulator on its stem. A battle much like the one I had with the can opener played out as I struggled to attach the regulator. My fingers were on fire when I finally finished. I took a few labored breaths as my chest rattled under all the activity. I had been busier today than I had been in weeks. What did I eat for dinner last night? I was trying to remember when I saw the yellow taxi pull up. A young man stepped out from the driver's seat. He noticed the oxygen bottle I carried at my side.
Good morning, sir,
He said.
Can I help you to the car?
I'll make it okay, I told him. Just you toss that bag in for me if you would. It has all my meds.
Of course, that's no problem.
I stood and walked to the car. I felt honor in my steps. It was the first time in years I had felt like a man. I sat inside and the driver handed me my bag. He got into the car and the two of us were off.
Got big plans for the day?
He asked as he looked at me in the rearview mirror.
Just visiting an old friend,
I told him.
Always good to catch up, I guess.
We rode in silence until I remembered what I had for dinner last night.
A peanut butter and syrup sandwich,
I said out loud.
I'm sorry?
He said as he turned his blinker on.
You know how in prison they give you a last meal before you die? If you're on death row, that is.
Yeah, I've heard of that. What would you pick for your last meal?
I don't know.
He said.
Maybe a steak or a turkey leg. If I could have anything, it would be my grandma's potato casserole. She's not with us anymore though, so that's out.
The driver accelerated as a stoplight turned green.
And you would pick a peanut butter and syrup sandwich?
I mean, it wasn't my first choice. Could have been canned chili, I guess. Not that that's much better.
I'm not following, sir.
It doesn't matter. That's me right there. The car squealed to a stop. I handed the driver a generous tip and then turned to face the shack that was Jerry's home. The day was still early and I found that odd. I checked the watch on my wrist and it was just past 10 a.m. Not that I was an expert, but I always thought killing a man was something that happened in the dead of night under a cloak of shadow. I shrugged and approached the door. My oxygen tank was heavier with each step.
Jerry, it's Susie's dad,
I said as I knocked with the weighty pounding.
I need to talk to you.
I didn't get an answer. I continued to beat on the door until I was wheezing and struggled for air. An old camping chair sat on the lawn, so I grabbed it and took a break.
No, he's in there,
I said out loud to myself. The street outside Jerry's home was busy with children playing. I watched as a little girl across the road drew on the pavement with big chunks of chalk. I couldn't use the gun. I didn't want to scare the kids or cause a scene. The last thing I wanted to do was traumatize them in any way. I looked to the oxygen tank at my side and got an idea. I went to the back of the house and found that door locked too. I picked up the metal cylinder and slammed it hard against the doorknob. The handle buckled slightly, so I heaved the tank up and hit it again. I bore down on the door until my vision became blurry, but eventually the handle fell to the ground with a metallic thud. The stench of stale alcohol and vomit greeted me as I entered. If Jerry was going to welcome me, he would have done so already. I wandered through the kitchen looking for any sign of my prey. The only noise in the home was a deep snoring coming from the bedroom across the hall. I peeked into the room and saw Jerry passed out, surrounded by whiskey bottles. I returned to the kitchen and rummaged through the drawers looking for a weapon. I found a long butcher's knife. I looked at the blade expecting to see the face of a killer reflected in the metal, but all I saw was a frail old man doing what he could to protect his daughter.
No, this won't do either,
I said out loud.
Someone will have to clean it up.
I went back to the room where Jerry snored. The disarray inside told the tale of a life spent out of order. A pair of crumpled jeans lay discarded on the floor next to him. I eyed the leather belt that was wound through the denim loops. Another idea struck me, and I pulled the heavy piece of leather from the pants. I stepped over the man that had tormented my daughter for years and felt a rage bubble from deep inside myself. How many times had I failed to stand up to him?
I hope you're watching this, Carol,
I said as I slipped the belt around his neck and looped one end of it back into the buckle.
I'll be joining you soon.
I inhaled deeply and felt my muscles tense. The old stranger that was adrenaline greeted me as I cinched the belt up tight and pulled as hard as I could.
Wake up, motherfucker!
I yelled as Jerry woke up gagging and grabbing at the makeshift noose. He jumped to his feet, moving quicker than I expected for being hungover. I jerked on the belt, but he was resolute, and I felt a fist of steel connect with my jaw. A shrill ringing pierced my ears, and for a moment, my vision faltered, but I took the blow on the chin and cinched up even tighter on my grip. The nerves in my hands begged me to stop.
Who the fuck are you?
He said, choking on his own spit and fear.
Susie's dad.
I felt a tightness in my chest begin to build up as my heart raced.
Told her you was gonna kill her, didn't you, big man?
My vision blurred, and I fell into Jerry with all of my weight, causing both of us to hit the ground. The cockroach tried to scuttle away from me, but the heel of my shoe found his neck. I pushed hard against his throat while I pulled on the belt with every bit of strength I had left. I was certain my hands had caught fire somehow, but I didn't let up.
I don't want to die.
The light of life was barely visible within his eyes. Jerry clutched at the belt, but the oxygen was leaving his body, and his fingers began to go limp. I jerked at the belt with every sign of weakness. I was a boa constrictor with a scared rodent in the final moments before death. A glaze fell over Jerry's eyes, and then he was dead. I rolled away from him and struggled to catch my own breath. My oxygen tank was lost in the fight. I did my best to locate it as the room around me started to spin. I searched my pockets for the inhaler that I carried, but it was gone too. A fog began to roll in and cover me. A searing pain in my left arm pulled me back to reality, and I was able to sit up. Death would leave this home 2 souls richer, but I found a peace nestled somewhere in the fear.
Oh shit!
I yelled out in fright and clutched at my chest when I saw a figure standing in the doorway to Jerry's room. The man was handsome. He said nothing, but a cigarette hung from his lip.
Were you one of Jerry's friends or something?
I asked. The man continued to look at me but didn't speak.
No, maybe a neighbor. That piece of shit didn't have many friends.
My lungs fought to deliver precious oxygen to the rest of my body. Each breath I took was shallower than the one before. I wheezed like the exhaust of a vehicle fighting for a few more miles with nothing but fumes in the tank.
I would ask you to call an ambulance, but I don't think there's much point. I don't figure I'm long for this world,
I said as I spit up blood.
You know, I was always scared of dying alone. My worst fear was Susie or my nurse finding me stiff and cold in that damned house of mine. It doesn't seem right that they should have to carry a memory like that.
The man reached inside his dark suit jacket and produced a cigarette. He offered it to me, and I nodded.
Never smoked a day in my life,
I said as the man gently placed the cigarette in my mouth. He reached down and lit it. I took a long drag from it, thinking about my last day on Earth. The smoke filled my lungs, but to my surprise, it didn't make me cough. The tobacco was cozy and warm. I was reminded of my grandpa's wood stove on a cold winter night.
I hope I did the right thing here. I want nothing but good things for her. That's all I've ever wanted.
The stranger squeezed my shoulder reassuringly, as if to give me the approval I desperately needed.
Don't say much, do you?
I asked while I took another hit off the cigarette.
That's fine with me. I don't mind the quiet.
The two of us smoked in silence, except for the sounds of my labored breathing. My chest felt like a plastic bag filled with water trying to hold air.
I sure hope Carol is on the other side of this.
The little strength I had left in my body was rapidly deteriorating.
I appreciate you sticking around with me, stranger.
I reached out to shake my new friend's hand, but slumped over before I got the chance. Death wrapped me in a warm embrace, and I was gone. Susie sat alone in the interrogation room. She gripped the cup of coffee the detectives had offered her tight in both hands, hoping that the warmth of the cup would quell her shivers.
I should have brought a sweater,
she said out loud. The door opened, and two men in suits and dark sunglasses stepped in. She didn't recognize either of them.
Look, I already told the other officers. I didn't know he was gonna do it.
Susie's voice cracked when she spoke about her father and the sacrifice he made.
We're not a part of the police investigation,
the taller of the two men said.
I'm Agent Clark with the Foundation. We just have a couple of quick questions. Do you recognize this man?
The agent slid Susie a photograph, and she picked it up, wiping at her eyes. The stranger in the photograph was attractive. He wore a dark suit jacket and seemed to be very well kept.
No, I've never seen him before,
Susie said.
The man in the photo was seen leaving Jerry's home just after the death of your father. A neighbor caught him on his security camera. You're certain he had no connection to you or your family?
I'm positive.
Susie said, pushing the photo back to the men.
Anything else?
Was your father a smoker?
No, neither was Jerry.
That's all we needed.
Agent Clark turned to face the other Foundation agent in the room with him.
Go ahead and call it in. It was him.
This story is based on SCP-4999. If you want to hear more tales just like this one, head over to my sister podcast, The SCP Experience. The link is in the description below. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy these stories, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and check out some more of my episodes here.